I went ice climbing with my kids, and we used some fixed-point lead belays. Let's talk about why we use this technique and some of the specific choices we made about setup. Hello everyone, I'm Jason. My kids have been doing multi-pitch rock climbing for a while now, first following and now leading. Recently, however, we did our first multi-pitch ice climb, and while the kids may lead on rock, they are not yet experienced enough on ice to be lead climbing. So that meant I had to lead, and they had to belay. How'd we manage that with the large weight differences between us? Well, insert the fixed point lead belay, or lead belaying off the anchor rather than the harness. Now, there are lots of ways to mess up a fixed point lead belay, and while I will get into some of the fundamentals as they applied to the specific scenario I was in with my boys, I'm not planning on covering all the contingencies that come with this technique. If you want a more comprehensive overview of the do's and don'ts of a fixed point lead belay, I would highly recommend Ryan Tilley's series, and I put links to 3 of his videos in this video's description, starting with his introduction video, moving through his anchor setups video, and then his final video on belay methods. Heck, then you can hire him for a day of quality guided instruction. I already alluded to one of the 2 main reasons we chose to use a fixed point lead belay. That is a large weight difference between the leader and the belayer. Having a lead fall could lead to a violent yank of the belayer into the anchor, increasing the likelihood of them getting injured and/or potentially losing control of the belay. The second reason is related, and it's why I use a direct belay from the anchor fairly often on ice, regardless of climber sizes. Many ice pitches start as a traverse, as getting off to the side of the belay can mean not cascading a bunch of falling ice onto our belayer. Because that belayer is no longer in line with the direction of the fall, a significant sideways yank can spin the belayer into the wall, as the ENSA, the school that trains French guides, demonstrated. I put another link in the description. Would you want to hold a belay when this happens? Notice the 0.3 fall factor as well. This isn't some 1.0 or 1.5 fall. Okay, so if that's the why, what about some of the tactical choices on how? Well, we chose to use what is sometimes called a banshee belay off of 2 vertically and horizontally staggered ice screws. A banshee uses a very small bullet on a bite as the master point. It's small so that we limit the distance that the belay travels when we have to catch a fall. It's a bullet on a bite because it adds double strand strength to the master point while also standing up to ring loading in a way a standard bowline cannot. How Not To did some testing on this, and there's yet another link in the description. The other end is a clove hitch, and then with the free end clipped back through the carabiner before locking as a failsafe. We have a short with another link on the step-by-step for tying this anchor. As far as the ice screws go, they are already able to take forces in multiple directions, just like sport climbing bolts, and the vertical offset helps because water ice most often fractures horizontally, and the vertical stagger works well with the banshee setup. Also, ice screws can be incredibly strong. We did a whole video on placing ice screws, and they can approach the strength of bolts when placed well in good ice. So we can check the box of having a very strong protection point holding the master point. Now, we've had to choose the method of belay. When I've done a fixed point lead belay on rock with my kids, making sure we have bolts or a multi-directional anchor, I've usually had them use a plaquette device with a brake strand redirect. We don't want to use most assisted braking devices because a sudden catch will exert high forces that can impact the climber, the anchor, and the rope, with rope damage being a real possibility. And we don't want a plaquette device without a redirect, especially on a traverse, because we really aren't creating the bend at the brake strand that is needed to add appropriate friction. We could also use a munter hitch, which is what we did in this case. Paying out slack with a redirected plaquette can be a bit complicated, and we wanted to limit the possibility of me getting short roped, which can cause a fall itself on ice, especially since I was leading pretty easy ice and I would be moving fast. That did add the risk of needing the most grip force from the belayer of any of the options, so it's not like the choice doesn't come with a cost, but we can also factor in the likelihood of me falling on water ice too, if not being tugged, as being pretty low. So that's a little bit on how I've been able to do multi-pitch climbing with my kids when they aren't leading. Do you have any climbing scenarios you face where a fixed point lead belay might make sense? Tell us your experience in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and share if you want to support us. For more information, you can go to our website at www.shortguysbetaworks.com. You can watch that video I mentioned about placing screws on lead or you can check out our entire ice climbing series. We'll see you next week and keep on getting more out of that big outside.